Why, hello there. I hope that this video finds you well, and I am here to talk about Wuthering Waves once again. As you are probably aware, if you click this video, the game has launched, it is live, and it has been out for 4 days now where I live. And so I want to talk about that. Let's talk about that. Today's video is basically going to be going over the good, the bad, and the ugly of Wuthering Waves launch. Real quick, I do want to say that I'm not claiming to have all of the right opinions or anything. I just claim to have opinions. These are my opinions. These are the things that I've experienced, the things that I've seen, that I believe. Do I know everything? No. Have I seen everyone's experience? Do I understand everyone's experience? No. But I will be talking about my opinions, how I have experienced the game, as well as the experiences that I've heard from people in my community and around me and stuff that I've seen and stuff like that. So it's just a disclaimer to say hey, these are just my opinions, my thoughts and stuff. That's what this is. We're gonna start off riding high. We're gonna start off talking about the good of Wuthering Waves launch. So far, at least for me, there are a couple really strong positives for the game here at launch. First of all, the gameplay is great. The combat, the movement, it's all incredible. First of all, let's start with the combat. It has layered systems that feel really good when you start getting them all together. When you're doing intro, outro skills, you're doing their bursts, or it's called resonance liberation or whatever. You're doing all this stuff as well as your echoes and everything. And it just feels so epic. It feels really cinematic. The bosses have counter attack and parry mechanics, and they even have special attacks that you can do special parries for extra special counter attacks. It's really fun. And when you're in the groove and you're hitting all the good stuff, you're hitting all the counter attacks, you're dodging all the other attacks, you're just doing really well. It feels really satisfying. The movement as well, as someone who has played Genshin a lot, I have thousands of hours in Genshin Impact, and also I've also played Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, all that, right? I can't tell you how happy I am to not have to slow climb up every single wall or mash my space bar, desperately trying to just hop up the wall little chunks at a time. Having the wall running mechanic feels like something that should have been done years ago, to be totally honest with you. But it's not just about the wall running, it's just the small little details within the movement. There's an air dashing mechanic, so every time you jump, you can get it's not really a double jump, but it's more a horizontal dash that allows you to sort of change the trajectory of where your character is moving. Gives you a tiny little bit of height, and if you combine that with the grappling hook, you can do some really interesting kind of nice mobility stuff that you got going on. And then if you use the echo system and you find enemies that have movement skills and stuff like that, being able to capture them and use those echo movement skills adds another layer on top. And also, this is something just a small little thing that I really like, is that you can switch your characters even while you're gliding, even while you're climbing, even while you're running up a wall. They don't really limit your ability to switch your characters. And I find that super refreshing when you're trying to move around and you want to just cast everyone's echo skills. If you have a bunch of movement echoes equipped because you're just running around doing something, then you can swap your characters while you're gliding and spam their echoes and stuff like that. I found out if you use the Heron skill, which is an echo, the bird echo, it kind of dashes you forward a little bit, but it also resets your air dash mechanics, so you can get 2 air dashes. And I will say that the exploration is not as complex as Genshin's later regions, Sumeru and stuff like that. It doesn't really hit that level of detail and complexity and stuff like that. But I will say that for it being the first thing that they've done, if you compare it to Mondstadt and Liyue, it's more complex than those environments. It actually is. And so if they just keep working on their skills, I mean, obviously this is Kuro Games' first time doing any sort of exploration content, because their previous game was entirely based around combat and mission based gameplay, so there wasn't really much of that kind of exploration thing, right? Levels were just very linear, right? And so obviously this is their first attempt at it, and if they release more content in the future, I would hope that they would be improving on this. And so it's like not as good as Genshin in terms of like later regions, but as a starting point, I'm actually like pretty satisfied with the exploration experience. Now, I'm not going to give any spoilers, so don't worry, but the story and setting are actually pretty intriguing. I'm only in like Act 4 or something, so like I'm not super far in or anything like that, but so far, like I just really like the aesthetic of the game. I feel like thematically it feels a lot more mature than something like Genshin Impact, so like that's refreshing in and of itself. But like it's also sci-fi, so it gives me a little bit of those vibes that I like from sci-fi things, where there's like interesting technology going on and stuff like that. Like it's not all just like magic and whatnot, like it's got some like interesting stuff going on. So while it's still early on and it's not like a super developed story, it's obviously just the beginning of a story. So far I'm actually liking what I'm seeing there. And then the last thing I'm going to say for the good category is that it feels super familiar in form factor. Like if you played a Hoyoverse game before, then you are going to feel right at home here with Wuthering Wave. Like you're going to feel like you're not going to miss anything. Like you're going to understand all the systems. Like a lot of the systems, just aesthetically and the way that they're designed feel so similar to what Hoyoverse does that like at times, you know, it's kind of like, it's like, wow, like I didn't expect this similarity to be there, but it actually is. And so there's a lot of that kind of experience, but that kind of helps you feel like really comfortable with the game immediately. Like I don't feel like lost or overwhelmed or anything. I feel right at home. And so now we're going to jump into the bad, and we're actually going to use the last good point as a bad point because this is going to be a thing. Sometimes the form factor, in my opinion, feels too similar to Genshin. Like I understand what the company was going for. They want people to feel like right at home. They don't want people confused or feeling overwhelmed or like unable to understand like how to navigate their system or anything. But also at the same time, like sometimes it feels like scary similar to like how Genshin is designed in many ways, including like the wishing, for example. And there's like just like a ton of little similarities that I feel like are almost unnecessary, where it's like I don't understand why they felt like they just needed to copy this aspect of Genshin and just use that as their inspiration, so to speak, for like how they were going to do something in the game. And I mean, you could always fall back on like, well, Hoyoverse did it and it worked and people are comfortable with that, so there's no reason to not just do that. And I understand that, but at the same time, there are a lot of people who are already going to be saying that this is like, you know, a copy of Genshin, or it's like a ripoff of Genshin or something, even though like they're obviously very different games in terms of setting and all sorts of other stuff. But like the form factor being so similar and so many other aspects of the game being so similar actually does kind of make it feel like there are certain parts of it that are like almost carbon copy from like your Genshin experience. And it's just like, you want to see the developers do something creative and iterative. I don't want to see them just do what like Hoyoverse did. I want them to like do their own thing, right? I understand that they want to try to fit into the market. They want to try to like have this comparative form factor for comfortability, accessibility, all that stuff. That's great and whatever. Also, like it needs to build its own identity. Like that's the core thing that this game needs to do, is build its own identity. And then there's a bunch of like little tiny complaints that I could levy at the game. I've seen quite a few typos. There's cut off dialogue on the bottom of text boxes. Like the text boxes won't be big enough to show all the dialogue. So if you're listening to dub dialogue and you're trying to like read the subtitles at the bottom, sometimes they're cut off, and that can be really infuriating. I just find that really frustrating, especially in like the non-voiced line quests. Like there are quests that aren't voiced. Sometimes you just literally can't know what was written underneath the bottom of the text box. Like it's just cut off. Sometimes voice lines cut off abruptly. Sometimes there's puzzles and other things that just feel like too simple or like copied from Genshin to the point of like being like a little bit weird. And essentially a lot of these issues kind of just boil down to like polishing certain aspects of the game. And then like my last like small complaint is that there's no two-factor authentication, so there's like not really that added layer of security to make me feel comfortable with like, if there are people spending money on this game, right? And so like they want to make sure that their accounts are safe and that there's security there, because like people do remember early days in Genshin when there was no 2FA and stuff like that. There were issues with people's account security, and like that's really something you don't want to have happen in a game where people are spending money. You want to make sure that their accounts are secure, that they feel safe. Like if they're going to spend money, it's not going to just like get taken away by some hacker or whatever, right? So now we have to talk about the ugly parts of the Wuthering Waves launch. And I'll be real, I was kind of hoping that they would have a smooth launch. There wouldn't be huge technical issues, especially when you're launching to a ton of people, like millions of people worldwide. Unfortunately, unfortunately, that smooth launch experience did not happen. There were many issues at launch. There were quite a lot of people that were not able to play at launch. Like, the game was literally unplayable. I have some footage of the experience, like comparing like the good experience versus the bad experience. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I have people in my community that were affected. I know someone who took off work for the launch of the game. They were not able to play the game because it was just literally unplayable. For me personally, I was having a great time and I was having literally no issues at all. My ping was fine. My computer was running the game fine. I wasn't having any internet issues, any connectivity issues. I was just having like the small polish issues of like, oh, that dialogue was cut off right there or whatever. Like, I wasn't having any of these massive issues, but I do know people that were. And if you went to the Discord the day the game launched, there were quite mixed responses being spammed in the chat. Like, there were some people having a great time, and there were some people literally having no time at all, being unable to play the game. So the first day that the game was out, I was definitely holding my breath. I was kind of like in suspense, like waiting to see what the response from the developers would be. And so right here we have an example of good communication, which is something that we're not always familiar with in this space. But like, yeah, the developers were pretty quick to say like, hey, we are aware of these problems and there will be compensation, but also keep your eyes peeled and stuff like that. We also received some in-game mail. I'm gonna go ahead and read that for you real quick. It says, Dear Rovers, Wuthering Waves has officially launched worldwide and we are immensely grateful for the support of our players. We have received numerous player feedback on a variety of issues, including login, timeouts, lagging and heating problems, frame drops, blurred screens, localization quality concerns, abnormal display on certain Android models, game crashes, and force quits. Our team is actively investigating these issues in order to find solutions. As a token of our gratitude, blah, 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 blah. In addition, we have included fixes to some of the most urgent issues with the broadest impact, login failures or overheating, and an emergency patch to ensure the stability of the game for most players. However, if you continue to experience serious problems or whatever, you know, you can lower the graphics and stuff like that. In future updates, we will continue to try to fix these issues and optimize the game and improve gaming experience and stuff like that. Please stay tuned. We sincerely apologize, all that great stuff. And actually, like, they have since given out even more stuff. Like, we've gotten quite a lot of rewards for this launch. They've been very generous, very communicative, and very generous. This is sort of like wrapping back around to the good. I didn't want to include this in the beginning because it sort of spoils the ugly, but like, they have been really in communication with the player base. They have also been very generous. I don't feel like anyone has much room to complain as long as they fix the issues, which, like, for a lot of people that I know, the issues are already fixed. Like, everything is running smoothly, the game is fine. There's just like those small polish issues. It's really just one of those things where like we need to see over the next week, 2 weeks, even through the rest of this first patch or 2 or 3, how they handle these issues and concerns with the game. But so far, they've been great. I feel like I have quite a bit of trust that they are going to continue to communicate with the player base and make sure that people are happy and satisfied with their experience. But yeah, that's essentially all I have to say about the launch of Wuthering Waves, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I have a friendly little gaming community here, and if you want to join, I will have links available for you. There is a link tree in the description of this video that goes to all my different socials, so you can join the Discord, you can check out my Instagram or my TikTok or whatever. And also, I will have a Discord link pinned in the comment down below, so if you want to check that out, please feel free to join the Discord. We would love to see some new friendly faces. We have a section for Wuthering Waves, for Genshin, Star Rail, all that kind of stuff. Feel free to join. Very friendly, chill community. And we would love to see some new people in there. Also, if you got this far, feel free to hit the subscribe button, hit the like, all that great stuff. Feel free to comment. Let me know what you think on all that great, wonderful, amazing, stupendous stuff. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. I am going to be making a very serious attempt to upload more consistently, like more frequently. So yeah, that's going to bring us to the end of this video. I appreciate you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Until then, make sure you drink some freaking water.